If you managed to watch my previous video, you would have seen me working on this 10-year-old strimmer. 10 years old, but it's actually been sitting in the barn for the last 5 years. The problem was my recoil starter, which actually completely disintegrated. I was, however, able to get a universal recoil starter, and with a little bit of modification I got it to fit quite nicely. Before I start working, I just want to make sure I have got a spark. So the first thing I've done is I've unscrewed 4 little screws, and I'm just taking the muffler off. I'm going to give it a little bit of a clean. If I turn the engine over, you can see that the piston is in very good condition. Now that the exhaust side has been removed and cleaned, I'm going to start on the carburetor side. First going to disconnect these 2 ignition wires. And I'm going to take off this cover. Removing the throttle cable is fairly straightforward. You just pull the throttle like that, and you hold the plastic part and release the throttle again. There are only 2 screws holding the carburetor in place. The fill will come off, revealing the carburetor. So now very carefully I'm going to be taking everything apart. The last screw, and now I can just pull that open. And now I can take the bottom part off, which will reveal the diaphragm. And I'm now going to blow carburetor cleaner through every single little passage that I can see, just to clear the old fuel out. As you can see, the primer bulb is in very bad condition. That's not going to work at all. The height of this metering lever can be adjusted just by bending that little tab upwards or downwards. Unfortunately, I had no idea what the make of the carburetor is, so I didn't know what the settings were. But anyway, I've been experimenting. If you have a look at this blade from the top of the carburetor to that side there, you can see what gap I've got. Alternatively, you can also put the blade inside, which I think is not the right way to do it, and it's actually a little bit higher. So anyway, this setting seems to work alright. Having a look at the 2 sides of the carburetor, when you put this little diaphragm on, it goes onto the flat side first, and then after that the gasket goes on. And on the metering lever side, first of all you put the gasket, and then you put the diaphragm on top of that. So as you can see, I've already changed the primer bulb. I opened up and cleaned the fuel tank and put on a new filter. This is what the old one looked like. I've come this far, so I thought I'd take the shaft off. Just 4 screws holding it on to reveal the clutch. Just going to clean that up a little bit. There's also another 4 screws. So taking off the last screw, and that whole cover comes off with the coil attached to it. Still having problems starting, so I took this manifold off, and I noticed the gasket, which is now in pieces, was all wet around the bottom there, so it's obviously leaking fuel out there and also leaking air into the cylinder. Primer bulb.